Good morning, Coalition of Concerned Republicans. It's June the 16th, 2026, and we are charging forward to the August 18th primary election for federal offices, state offices, and local offices. And it's so interesting that while candidates just qualified no later than the 12th of June last week to run for the offices that they're seeking, much of the election is already over. As you can see with this governor race, as the Republican Party of Florida set out a standard by which each Republican candidate for governor would have to meet in order to debate at the Sunshine Conference coming up. Only Byron Donalds qualified. So basically what they're saying is that in order for a gubernatorial candidate to debate, the candidate has to have the three tens. The first 10 is they have to have $10 million in the bank. The second, they will have to have raised $10 million. The second 10 is that they need 10,000 individual contributors to their campaign. And the third 10 is they have to have at least 10% in the RPOF poll. And when you apply that standard to the gubernatorial candidates, Byron Donalds is the only one that qualifies. So that is causing quite a stink around the state. And the governor has weighed in and said he didn't think that was a very fair or reasonable standard. He thinks that the best candidate for governor out there may not meet that criterion. And he pointed out that at this stage of the election, when he was running, he would not have qualified. So here's Governor Ron DeSantis kind of pushing back against some RPOF policy for the first time since I've been around, and since he's been, actually, I've been around longer than him. But we've never really heard Ron DeSantis speak for or against anything the Republican Party of Florida was doing. I always assumed because he knew exactly what they were doing and was on board with it. So that's that. And thank you very much for tuning in to Restoring Our American Republic. That's great. I hope you'll like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. On this broadcast, Chuck Benoit and I, we get into mostly state politics, but we do dabble in local politics. And when things are huge at the federal level, like the war in Iran, and yes, it is a war, we might comment on that because we just are compelled to do so. But today, we'd really like to talk a little bit about this gubernatorial race because it's so important. This is another election cycle where it's another critically important election cycle, not particularly because we're going to choose the next governor to succeed Governor Ron DeSantis, but also just the mix of people and the type of people that we're electing into these elected offices. And we need to determine whether that's good for, the grassroots constituency, which I define as median household income families, or is there something else driving the momentum behind these various campaigns? So with that, I'd like to ask Chuck to join us here. Chuck, can you come on board?
Morning, Mike.
Good morning, Chuck. I don't know, that microphone's pretty loud in my ear.
Oh, is it?
Okay
sorry about that.
All right, Chuck. So listen, Chuck, to introduce this topic, I think it'd be a pretty good idea. Is it possible for you to put my legislative priorities up on the screen for the audience to take a look at?
That would have been nice if you would have given me that a bit before.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying to you is this. When I go out and every now and then, one of these grassroots organizations will ask me to come make a few comments at one of their meetings. And my comment typically is that everybody should have each of us should have our own legislative priorities. What do we want from our state government? What do we want from our state senators and state representatives and federal candidates as well? And to listen to what they have to say and see which of their narratives kind of draws you in, I think is not a great way to do it. I think that you should have a checklist of things that you're looking for that you believe the state should or should not be doing, or the federal government or your local government. And then basically go out and take a look at all the various publications that the candidates should be publishing and compare what they're saying with what you're saying. And the candidate that lines up with your legislative priorities is the person you should vote for. What do you think about that, Chuck?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I wish, Mike, that you did ask me to get that up, because I'd have to go through my whole computer looking for where I put it.
No, we don't want it. It's not that important.
Okay,
You know,
good.
The audience would not be, they would not read through it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, my legislative priorities are pretty detailed, and it's headings with bullet points and all that. And, you know, I just wanted to kind of give a visual example of what that might look like if you sat down at your computer and just pounded in, you know, a couple of, you know, maybe three or five things, you know, that you'd like to see the government do or not do, things that you think would make the state of Florida better, things that you think would make your local jurisdiction better. But we should all have that in our pocket when we're talking to these candidates who are running for public office. Because the idea, let me say to you that for someone who has been inside of these political campaigns, candidates often avoid publishing their true thoughts and their true priorities because they're afraid they might alienate someone. Well, I think I take the opposite approach, and I say that when a candidate's running for public office, they should clearly define what they plan on doing when they get in office, particularly, and they should hit the ground running by having, I'm going to do this first, this second, this third. This is my first priority, second priority, third priority, so that we, again, time is a very important resource. And if these candidates get elected into office and then they spend their first year figuring out the lay of the land, we're burning time. So that's why today I asked Chuck to go through, and I went through and made a list, and I actually went online to each one of the Republican candidates who have qualified to run for governor. I looked them up online, and I provided Chuck with the websites for them. And we just want to really click through those websites, hit the issues or policy or priorities tab, and see just generally what these people are talking about. And I would suggest to you that if it's not on your website, it doesn't exist. What do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, Mike, I think you're hitting on some good things, because most of us aren't really concerned, or we're not really paying attention to what our priorities are versus the representatives, and they're certainly not going on websites looking for them. You know, if you're going to wait to get your cards in the mail, your postcards in the mail, what you're going to get is, you know, different candidates slurring other candidates. You're going to get all the negative things going out there, and they're really trying to keep you from voting for one person because they want you to vote for them. That's just not the way to do it. We really do need to know where these people stand, and how they stand regarding what we want. And I think this is hopefully people will pay a little bit of attention. We'll try to get these websites somehow into the comments section to make it easy for them to find out. Now, I don't think we have all the Republicans, but we have a lot of them.
No, we have all of them.
You do have all, okay, because I knew there's like 45 different candidates, but...
no, they did not qualify.
Oh, okay, so a lot of them didn't
So
qualify.
the list that we're going to put up today are the Republicans who qualified to run for governor. So this,
Okay.
you know, in August, we're going to have a primary election. The primary will determine who the Republican nominee will be, and the Republican nominee will run against all the other parties in November.
Okay, well, let's...
So we are looking at all of them. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Well,
And these are in alphabetical order, ladies and gentlemen. These are in alphabetical order, so we're not preferencing one candidate over another, starting with Jay Collins.
There you
right?
go. So on
Chuck, would you mind just hit those bullet points on Jay Collins' issues page?
Yeah, so again, their issues page, this is what we're talking about, the issue on his particular website. He's a Florida First guy. whatever that means, right?
Whatever that means.
He wants to secure the border, stop fentanyl, make Florida affordable again, jobs growth, and the American dream. Stand with farmers and ranchers, world-class schools that put kids first, protection conservative values, law and order, veteran care, protect seniors, infrastructure for Florida growth, quality of life, and environment. And that's all under his issues tab up here.
Okay, so he's got quite a few issues out there, but I'm just wondering to the audience, I wonder if anybody is tuned into specifically what this guy would do if you elected him to be the governor. Based on what he's saying right there, do you have a feeling for what he would actually do? What does that actually look like? Okay, so let's, now this, Chuck, would you just, let's see, the website is j4florida.com, JAYFORFLORIDA.com. Is that right, Chuck?
That's right. Right.
Okay, perfect. j4florida.com. So there it is. That's how Jay Collins approaches issues as he publishes his platform to the public. Let's go to Byron Donalds now.
Okay. So on Byron Donalds, I went to issues again, and here's Byron Donald on the issues. Enact the Trump agenda. Fight illegal immigration. Make Florida more affordable. Expand economic opportunity. Protect our conservative values. Improve our infrastructure. And preserve our environment. And there's Byron Donalds in a nutshell.
Okay. So again, keep in mind that we're not reading the entire description under those headings, so we have to give the candidate credit because we're not giving an opportunity today to get really specific. But I just would, again, ask the audience to, and I would encourage you to go to each one of these websites and look this over for yourself, because the candidates are putting it at, well, to be honest, they're really not. I mean, if you go out and listen to their talking points when they're on the campaign trail, a lot of it is not directly aligned with what they're publishing on their websites. So I would suggest most of the candidates really think their website, I think, is kind of an afterthought. But for me, if a voter is looking to do some research on a candidate, the best place they should be able to go to get information on a candidate is the candidate's website. And the candidate should be able to close the deal on their website with voters, in my opinion. So we did Jay Collins, we did Byron Donald. So now let's look at James Fishback's page.
James Fishback, again, he's got a platform page, and that's what I've got up here. Yeah. Day one priorities, bold action from day one, not empty promises, executive orders. James will sign the moment he takes office. Protect Florida homes, eliminate homestead property tax. That might have already happened.
No, it didn't happen.
Well, obviously it's not totally.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah, right. Rise and shine down payment. 10,000 down payment.
That's a program of his own. Okay, yeah. He created this Rise and Shine down payment program. So he's saying basically that first-time home buyers, married couples, get $10,000 towards a down payment. That's basically the program. But you have to give him credit. You know, that's unique to him. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, $1 billion Citrus Revival Prize, $1 billion cash prize for scientists.
Okay.
To develop greening resistant citrus. Halt H-1B visa program.
Okay, let's keep going.
Free the roads, which is eliminate toll roads for Florida residents.
Okay.
25% teacher pay raise. And 10,000 merit grants. 10,000 grants for high-performing high school graduates. Florida should reward excellence and give our brightest kids a real head start.
Okay, so that's the story on James Fishback. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's James, James, dash Fishback, FISHBACK.com. That's how you can get information on James Fishback. James-Fishback.com. The next would be Jim Holcomb.
Okay.
Chuck, that's Jim Holcomb.
There he is, and There's nothing here about any issues or priorities. There is a Who is Jim Hope button you can click, and you can figure out who Jim Holcomb is, but nothing about what he stands for.
Right. So he's basically a firefighter who's run for office a couple of times, but he doesn't take the time to put any issues or policy statement on his website. I think that's a problem, don't you, Chuck?
Yeah, well, it certainly doesn't encourage me to not even to look very far into,
I'm done, Chuck.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. There you go.
Well, let me just interject right now that there's a gentleman by the name of, and his name is Arthur Joseph McCaffrey. And he actually was late, but he did make it to the Lake Federated Republican Women Club thing the other day. But he does not have a website, none of that. He's kind of an interesting case study. If you just Google it, you'll learn a lot about this guy. But I don't, so anyway, I'll let you decide. But he doesn't have a website or anything that we can present to you today on this broadcast. So Chuck, we'll move on next to Nokovich. This, I don't know, I can't remember his first name, but you have it.
Yeah.
Nokovich.
Yeah, and he has a platforms button, and that's where I
What's
am
his
here.
name? His name is Daniel Nokovich, right?
I'll have to look
Daniel.
somewhere else. Yep, Daniel Nokovich, right.
Right.
So on his platforms page, he has faith and values, and he has questions that I guess if you click it, yeah, you'll get an answer. Why are you running for governor as a man of faith? And then he gives us the answer here. And he goes on, how does your faith shape your approach to governing? And do you support religious freedom in Florida? What does returning Florida back to God mean to you practically? That might be an interesting one to read. It means calling Florida to humility and repentance, not as a government mandate, but as a movement, like Abraham Lincoln's National Day of Fasting and Prayer or George Washington's call to seek God in times of crisis. I believe Florida's greatest problems are spiritual before they're political. Good policy follows good people. I'll use my platform to model that and invite others into it, not enforce it. I guess you're invited into it, and you're not being forced to. And then in education and families, this is an interesting, way to set things up. He's asking questions that we should be asking, and he's answering them from his perspective. Where do you stand on parental rights in education? What curriculum change would you push for in Florida schools? What is your position on school choice and homeschooling? And then we get to health care. What does health care reform look like under your leadership? What is your stance on food safety and water quality in Florida? Where do you stand on abortion? Next is law enforcement. This is probably one of the most complete. This guy's really got a lot of issues here. Law enforcement and public safety. What is your vision for law enforcement in Florida? How will you address crime in Florida? How do you think, or what do you think about the Second Amendment? Then we get to economy, housing, and cost of living. How will you address Florida's cost of living and housing crisis? What will you do to support small businesses in Florida? What's your position on taxation in Florida? And then government reform and constitutional accountability. Why are you running as a Republican? What makes you different from the party establishment? What does government accountability look like under your leadership? What is your view on the judiciary in Florida? What role does the state play in protecting Floridians' privacies, and how would you work with Florida's diverse communities? What is your vision for transportation in Florida? What's your approach to immigration enforcement in Florida? How will you fight human trafficking in Florida? What is your core message to Florida voters? That's a lot of information you get, and you get that on his platforms page at nokovichforgovernor.com. We'll have all this stuff. We'll put it up in the comments section. So, do we want to move to the next?
Yes, we do. So that was Daniel Nokovich, and now we're going to go to Paul Renner.
Paul Renner. And
now let me just say to the audience real quick, Nokovich is nokovichforgovernor.com. 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 Now we're going to go over to Paul Renner's website.
And Paul Renner's has an issues page, and that's what I have up here. Florida First issues. As Speaker of the House, I advance the nation's most conservative state agenda, branding us the free state of Florida. We must defend our victories and make Florida affordable again. So his points here are affordable living, property tax cuts, lower property and auto insurance rates, world-class schools, workforce readiness, free speech in classrooms, instruction in American exceptionalism, safe communities, protection for first responders, zero tolerance for illegal immigration, child safeguards for social media exploitation, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, quality of life, improve mental health access, no development on state park islands, protect state wildlife corridor. So those are the issues that he has on his issues page.
So I'm just wondering if the audience has gotten excited about our candidate yet. So, hey, audience, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a comment. And plus, for each one of these, it'd be great, If you just say, starting at the top, I either liked what this guy had to say on his website or I didn't. Whatever comments that you have, would love to hear what you think about these various candidates and, what they're publishing. As I said before, as far as I'm concerned, the website should be the one go-to place where people can learn whatever they need to learn in order to win your vote. That's what the candidates should be doing with their website, in my opinion. So that's Paul Renner's site, which is Vote Renner, VOTERENNER.com. Now we'll move on to Rachel Rodriguez.
And Rachel Rodriguez has a policy page. Mm-hmm. Remember the 5 R's. My agenda.
Okay, what are they?
Okay, restore health freedom, relieve working families, reform the courts, reclaim parental rights, reserve Florida's land. So those are 5
there you go, the 5 R's.
For Rachel.
So the question becomes, ladies and gentlemen, of those 5 R's, how many of those resonate with you? How important is that? If you were to put your legislative priorities on a list, 1 to 5, how would Rachel Rodriguez's top 5 legislative priorities align with yours? Let's go on to the next one, I guess, Chuck, right? So that's going to be Jim Shaw. There we go. There's Jim Shaw.
Jim Shaw, and he has, an issues page, and that's where we are here. Protect citizens, land and sea, and the Second Amendment. Under citizens, inflation, business-friendly, continue DeSantis's vision of abolishing property tax, never vaccine mandates, destroy human trafficking, youth, seniors, war on drugs. Under land and sea, overcrowding, overdevelopment, water toxins, farming priorities, clean in beaches, prairies, and skies. Second Amendment, protect personal sovereignty, rights won't be infringed. And he notes here, every dictator in history at some point took the guns away to gain power. So that is James Shaw.
Okay, and you can find James on his website at votegim.us. VOTEGIM.US. Now, Chuck, you're going to have to introduce this next gentleman who spells his last name SUCCE. Will you do the intro on that one?
Well, I have no idea how he pronounces his last name, but I would say maybe Suki or Suchi, Canesta.
Canest, right? CONESTE, right?
SUCCE, Suchi. I'll go
Okay,
with
that's
that.
him. Okay, so let's go through his priorities.
Right,
Chuck.
so he has an agendas page, and that's where we are here, leading Florida forward. Try to get it all up here. Lower everyday costs, restoring agriculture, strengthening Florida's economy, natural resources and state pride, improving education, public safety and skills. So those are his 6 priorities, his agenda.
Okay, that's good. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find Mr. SUCCE by going to SUCCEFORFLORIDA.com. SUCCEFOR, Florida, FLORIDA.com. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last candidate we're going to cover today because it's the last candidate that's qualified in the race on the Republican ticket here, and that would be Bobby Williams. Chuck, you want to put his page up?
Bobby Williams, and we have a Bobby's stance page. Bobby Williams stance. Bobby Williams stands for Florida only. He is against data centers, against illegal immigration, against property taxes that punish homeowners, against overdevelopment destroying Florida's communities, against corruption in government, against foreign influence in Florida's land, politics, and economy, against corporate control of our state, and against selling out Florida's future to special interests. So he's against an awful lot there. Hopefully what he is for is the opposite of what he's against.
Well, that's a good point, Chuck. I was thinking the same thing, right? Because, I have a tendency to be against a lot of stuff too, but it's always smarter for me when I try to flip that issue over and say, what am I for?
There you go.
Because you can be against things all day long, but if you don't have a solution, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that Bobby Williams doesn't have a solution, but we're talking just basic presentation of thought, right, Chuck?
Yeah, just moving down a little bit, again, on the same page, he's got God first, preserve Florida, protect waterways and land,
right.
Education, housing, agriculture, disaster relief. So he has a lot down here at the bottom that I guess he's talking about what he's interested in doing. So,
Right.
so I guess hopefully we can see both sides of the coin there, what he's for as well as what he's against.
Okay, Chuck. Well, that takes care of our candidates. Let's. We got a couple of minutes left on our broadcast here today, so why don't you and I just have a quick chat about what popped out at us as we were, going through the entire list of Republican candidates who will be on the ballot for governor on August the 18th, and early voting starts actually on August the 8th, right, Chuck? And mail-in ballots go out on July the 8th. So, ballots are going to be in the mail real quick here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to get a mail-in ballot, you're going to have it here in a couple of weeks, Chuck.
Yes, you are. And
Chuck, tell us a little bit about your experience with your driver's license and all that you went through.
Okay, well, we're going to be talking about this elsewhere, and it was addressed at the Republicans, the Women's Federated Republicans meet and greet a little while ago, and it appears that if you renewed your license, your driver's license, after July 31st of 2024, you have been given a new driver's license number. And whether or not you understood that or knew that at the time, you have been given a new number. And so that information is not necessarily on your supervisor of elections voter registration information. Now, I've been assured by the supervisor of election that that wouldn't keep you from voting, and now we've already had an entire election since then, so if that was an issue, someone would have known it by now, for sure. But it's still an important thing to deal with. So you need to go on the supervisor of election website. You're going to look for your information. You're going to need your Social Security, your last four of your social, because driver's license number is going to be different. And if you've never given the supervisor of election your social security number, you may not be able to find your information at all. So you'd have to do the paper thing. You'd have to go to any organization that's doing a voter registration drive and fill out a new form with a change of information, not a new. Obviously, you're not trying to vote again. You're just having to change your information, and you need to give them the new driver's license. So it's as simple as that. They're saying that if it became an issue at the voting booth, that they would possibly require you to fill that information out before you voted. I would suggest we just go ahead and do it. So that's for anyone who's renewed their driver's license after July 31st, 2024. So hopefully I made that clear. So, Mike, I guess my point is there were a couple of websites that I thought had a lot of information. I have not been able to talk or hear personally from all of them, all of the above, but I do have to tell you that Bobby Williams has got my attention. I mean, I'm not saying I'm voting for him. I'm just saying he's got my attention. So why don't you close us up, Mike?
Okay. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. As I said earlier, I just think this is a really crucial election. Again, I guess, every one of these elections seems like, if we don't get this right, it'll be the end of the world. And I feel that way very much right now. I think that the selection of our governor is going to be really critical for the well-being of our state on so many levels. And then again, just the whole makeup of the Florida legislature is so important, with the mindset of each and every one of our state reps and each and every one of our senators and the relationship that they have with leadership and things like that. And it's critical, that we get people who are independent thinkers and people who are willing and able to talk intelligently with leadership and be able to help leadership understand where the constituents in each one of the senators and each one of the state reps districts, what the constituents in those districts think and why we want what we want in our hometowns. That's critically important. And this election cycle, and I would just say that if you take the time, and I would encourage you to do that, take the time to take a look at each of these gubernatorial candidates' websites, and you'll start getting a feeling for what these people are about, right? And I just, want to pray for you and your family, and let's all, let's all go out and vote our conscience and vote for the people that we think would be the best leaders, and let's elect great people so that we can go into 2028, into the presidential election cycle from a position of strength from the state of Florida. Chuck.
Well, thank you so much, Mike Levine, and thank you all for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook and X at RestoreOurRep76. Check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic-ROAR. Please like and share the program, and remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you, God bless President Donald J. Trump, and God bless America.